Welcome, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Clarissa Bea. I'm Union Pacific's Chief Communications Officer, and as we get ready for the really cold winter, we want to make sure that we can prepare you as much as possible for the challenges that we may face this season. And so while we can't control Mother Nature, we can take some steps to minimize the impact. So that's what we're here to talk to you about. And following this webinar on hurricane preparedness, we asked you, what do you want to hear about? And you said winter weather. So here we are. Let me introduce our presenters for today. We have Emily Peters, who's our Manager of Marketing and Sales, Tiffany Russell, Senior Director of Operations Support for our Harriman Dispatch Center, Tony Palfini, who's our Senior Director of Customer Care and Support, Matt Hall, our General Manager of Transportation, and Lisa Stark, our Vice President of Public Affairs. I'm really excited that they'll be able to walk you through just all of the things, hopefully, that you might need to anticipate. So before we get started, let me do some housekeeping. This legal disclaimer basically says we won't be talking about pricing. We won't be talking about contracting. Anything that falls into antitrust, we won't do that. But what we will do is answer the questions that you have. So next slide, please. So we encourage you to ask questions at any time using the chat feature in Teams. You can ask questions there, or you can scan this QR code, and you'll see this QR code on every slide. So don't panic if you didn't grab it just yet. And we're going to make sure we have plenty of time at the end to answer the questions you may have. But first, next slide, we want to just talk a little bit more about who is joining us today. So if you can take this poll, it gives you a chance for us to kind of test the technology and you familiarize yourself, but please share your information. Are you a current Union Pacific customer, a potential Union Pacific customer, a community member, or are you an other? And if you're an other, that's great too. So please take a moment to answer the questions in the poll. All right. As you do that, I'm going to take a moment now to just talk a little bit about Union Pacific's strategy. And so these are the key pillars of our strategy, which is safety, service, and operational excellence. We know if we do that, then we will grow together. Our customers will grow and we will grow. And so when we talk about safety, we want to be the best at safety. To put it in perspective, a Union Pacific train can travel around the Earth almost 50 times around the equator before we see a derailment. And so we're excited that we continue to make great progress in safety. We've seen a 23% decline in derailments over the past decade, and we want to do more. We feel like it's always something that we have to work on and be focused on, and you'll hear us talk a bit about that today. Service is those of you who are our customers. We rise to serve you, and we want to make sure we deliver what we promised you. So we have something called a Service Performance Index, and that's saying, what was our best performance over the past 3 years, and how do we beat our best? Customers want service in different ways. Sometimes it's speed, sometimes it's reliability. It all depends. And so, well, all the time it's reliability based on what we promise, but sometimes it's less about the speed and more about the predictability of the scheduling. So we want to just make sure that we're serving you, and that's what the SPI index is all about. When you think about cost control and asset utilization, at the end of the day, we're being responsible with our assets. We're being responsible thinking about how do we make the best decisions to get the most out of that. And we try to spend our resources as if they're our own. And when you think about people, we have some of the greatest benefits. We offer free college tuition to all 30,000 plus Union Pacific employees anywhere on our network. And so we do a lot to care for our people, and we know without people, nothing is possible. And so that's a little bit about our strategy, and then I'll let you watch this video, and then we'll jump in to hear about the winter weather. When a bold team rises on machines of steel and gold, buffed and buffered with passion and pride, we become the fleet. We rise to defy all obstacles and to beat all odds, knowing winning is the pursuit of what is possible. Building bridges and scaling mountains, we weather frost and fire. Connecting at the intersection of imagination and innovation, we are Union Pacific. Our strategy, safety, service, and operational excellence is our key to growth. To be the best at safety, we look out for each other. We carry goods with courage and care for customers counting on us, safeguarding communities depending on us, ensuring everyone makes it home. To deliver the service we sold our customers, we bring food and fuel to nourish the land, grow economies, heat homes and hearths. We energize industries, moving construction cargo, chemicals, petroleum, and plastics. We transport transportation, hauling finished vehicles and their parts for all major manufacturers. We move the world, serving all 6 major gateways, leading service to and from Mexico, sustainably connecting our continent with commerce from across the globe. We do this with operational excellence, powered by predictable precision, speed, reliability, and resilience. We are thoughtful about asset utilization, empowering those closest to the work to make the best decisions. We exercise cost control, spending resources wisely with a buffer for the unexpected. We know people make everything possible and engage our teams and stakeholders listening to their needs and investing in their success. We are legend and legacy, steam and dreams, made of the engines that shaped our nation. We are one fleet. Born from steel and powered by will, we carry the weight of the freight that fuels our world. We are Union Pacific. Thank you, everyone, for watching that. And now I'm going to hand it over to Emily Peters.
Good morning. Before we get started today, we just want to go over a couple of things that customers can do to prepare in advance of this winter weather. The first is if you don't have a user ID and password, make sure to go onto our website and get signed up for that. That'll also give you the ability to use our mobile web application. Once you have this, you can make sure that you are signed up to receive customer notifications, specifically winter weather notifications. This is also a tool that you'll be able to use if there's any issues that come up. You can open up a service log from your phone and communicate with our teams directly. On the next slide are a couple of other tips. The first is to download the winter weather action plan checklist. You can do this with the QR code that you see on the screen. A couple other tips, and Tony's going to go into more details, but some key hitters are making sure that your facility is ready and prepared for service, cleaning your flangeways to prevent any derailments, also making sure that you're on high alert and checking road crossings, particularly if it's a road crossing where vehicle traffic is transversing. These are some of the key things that will help you in prevention for not prepared for service charges that can occur. And most importantly, communicate. Our number one goal is to make sure that we're getting your freight to you safely and effectively. If any problems arise on your side, please communicate them with us, and we'll do the same with you. With that, it's my pleasure to hand it over to Tiffany Russell with our Harriman Dispatch Center.
Thank you, Emily. While most consider weather to be unpredictable at times, there are key factors that drive each seasonal change. For winter weather, the first factor is La Nina. This is a phenomenon that occurs when water temperatures near the equator in the eastern Pacific remain below historical average for an extended period of time. This can significantly influence weather patterns across North America, including the trajectory of snowstorms. La Nina will be weak for most of the winter, which can allow other signals to drive the pattern, resulting in more variability throughout winter. When the water cools off to at least 0.9 of a degree Fahrenheit below historical average, that is when La Nina is declared. The second key factor is a polar vortex. Based on data from previous winters with a similar setup to the upcoming season, February is the most probable time for the polar vortex to usher a blast of that bitterly cold air across the eastern United States. Most areas in the Northeast will receive more snow this winter than last winter, with an uptick in snow likely across parts of the Midwest, including Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. However, the snow will be broken up by pauses in the cold and wintry weather, especially in the middle part of the season, as milder air from the Pacific flows across the country. The third key factor is the temperatures in the Gulf. Water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico and the northern and northeastern Pacific can directly impact the outcome of the winter season. Water temperatures in the Gulf are expected to be higher than historical averages, which can translate to mild air masses for the central and eastern United States. The warmer than average water temperatures in the northern Pacific could alter the storm track at times during the winter for the West Coast, impacting the entire U.S. Temperatures throughout the season could run more than 3 degrees above the historical average for most of the region, including Dallas, New Orleans, Atlanta, and Nashville. On this next slide, you can see what this winter will bring in terms of snow compared to normal historical averages. December is the first month of the meteorological winter and will bring brief blasts of cold air that will trigger lake effect snow. Snow is possible in areas farther away from the lakes from typical early season winter storms. As you can see from the map, the northwestern portion of the United States will see an increase of anywhere from 12 to 36 inches of snow compared to the historical norms. Big changes will unfold during the opening weeks of 2025 as a new weather pattern will promote milder air and less snow across the eastern half of the nation. The back-end surge to winter will bring the potential for multiple snowstorms from the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and through the Northeast. The risk of snow may also be accompanied by the polar vortex, and as you can see, some areas will see upwards of 72 plus inches of snow. Tony and Matt, I'll let you share more on how Union Pacific prepares for winter weather.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm the general manager for the Rocky Mountain Service Unit, which is headquartered in Salt Lake City. I've spent most of my 18-year career on our northern region, which for us means I've been a part of winter planning and execution for a long time. I've had the pleasure of leading our local operations during polar vortexes, Siberia, record snowfall on Donner Pass a couple years ago. So I'm going to walk you through today some winter weather actions we do both before and after a storm. When we see major weather events that could impact our operation, our first step is to set up a command center. So I want you to think about a 24/7 desk that we put people on that ensures we have the right resources in the right places to minimize the impact of the weather. And then after the storm, that desk immediately transitions into a recovery center. And they're tasked with giving us a speedy return to normal operations. Next, our dispatch center works to ensure we have lodging for essential employees, implements train building adjustments. So those adjustments include train length, locomotive restrictions when applicable. And we make those adjustments because extremely cold air makes building the necessary air within the train to control the brakes difficult in longer trains. That's not the case in normal winter operations, just in extreme cold conditions. Crew management then plans out our staffing and hotels for both the folks that call our crews as well as the crews themselves. After the storm, they help coordinate essential employees as well as set up emergency off-plan transportation. An example of that is when I mentioned the Donner Pass storm that we had a few years ago. They helped me in that previous role by sending the company jet to help me get crews repositioned from Sacramento to Reno when I-80 was closed for a couple of days. Really important 15-minute flight for us in that part of the world at the time. Getting our employees to work safely is the priority. So during major events, we will at times allow our crews to get hotels close to where their work locations are to ensure that we're able to move your freight. Our customer care and support helps us by keeping both our internal marketing and sales as well as our external customers informed of our efforts. And then lastly, network planning joins the command center to ensure that our critical resources are deployed. They also help the team by making strategic decisions to move traffic temporarily around the affected areas at times. And now I'll hand it over to Tony.
Thanks, Matt. And hello, everybody. I'm Tony Palfini. I'm the Senior Director in Customer Care and Support. I have responsibility for the North region. I've been with UP for 27 years now, with the last 6 being in customer care and support. So the first slide I want to review are the steps to be taken before the winter weather arrives. So the most important thing when planning for winter weather is to ensure the safety of both your team as well as our crews. So before the weather hits, we need help from our customers to assure that the facilities are prepared for the impact of the winter weather. So inspect the gutters, drains, walkways by checking for the gutters and the drains to assure that they're not blocked or leaking, which can result in ice buildup and water draining into areas where it shouldn't. Also inspect the walkways and clearing debris or clutter to assure that the snow can be cleared once it starts falling. Clean and grease up all the switches, derails, flangeways. The cold weather can make switches hard to throw, especially if they're already stiff when it's warmer weather outside. Check for proper drainage around the rails and the right-of-way to prevent water from pooling, which will freeze as the temperatures drop. And remove all debris from the right-of-way, which can be hidden when the snow starts to fall and create tripping hazards. And place clearance cones or raised markers on the track sides to make sure that those locations are clearly visible when the snow is falling. Prepare your equipment by checking to see that all the gates and the locks are functioning properly before the snow hides the potential hazards. Purchase some de-icer to free up the locks in case they freeze, and ensure that all the snow and ice removal equipment is in good working order. Be sure your team knows the proper steps to take following a storm. Hold a job briefing with our local train crew to share your action plans and get their feedback from what they've seen potential issues from previous storms. Review the impact of previous storms. It'll help you determine any new processes and resources that might be needed to be properly prepared for Mother Nature's worst. Going to the next slide, these are the steps to take after the winter event. So these are the actions that we need help completing once the storm has passed, or even during the storm if it's safe for our crews to operate. Remove snow and ice from around the facility to ensure that both your team and our team have clear and wide walkways to avoid slips, trips, and falls. This includes removing snow from the walking paths next to the tracks. Clear the switches, the tracks, and the structures. You need to ensure that the switches and the derails are operational. And clear snow and ice with enough space to allow the crew the safe room to be able to safely and properly operate those switches. The switches are the most susceptible to snow and ice buildup and can cause delays, if not even derailments. If possible, use switch heaters, hot air blowers, or even large tarps to help keep switches clear and operational. Clear the crossings of snow and ice. Pay attention to places where cars, equipment, and foot traffic may compact the snow and ice. Compacted snow and ice on tracks can cause derailments, and the flangeways at crossings should have clear grooves to reduce the potential for train wheels to derail. It's important to regularly inspect the track. Inspecting the track frequently throughout the winter allows you to repair defects immediately to prevent broken rails that can lead to derailments. And track inspections are even more important during extreme temperatures because the metal contracts in the cold and expands in the heat, which means that temperature fluctuations can cause small cracks that can eventually lead to broken rails. Be sure to inspect the equipment and remove the snow. Check all the gates and the locks to ensure that our crews can operate them safely and properly. And remove snow from the gates, walkways, track sides, and continue to clear the snow and ice throughout the winter storm impact. This is a critical step that we hear the most about from our crews. Clearing the snow once may not be sufficient if the wind blows that snow right back onto the tracks, the switches, right-of-ways, or walkways. And be sure to provide adequate clearance. This is another one of the top concerns of our crews. Make sure that the snow piles are placed at least 12 feet away from the tracks and the crossings, and don't pile snow where it's restricting the visibility. So when safely possible, also ensure that the rail cars that are on site are clear of built up snow and ice. So for my last slide, this is going to cover the winter weather planning resources that are available. So all of the pre and the post-storm items that I just reviewed are available at up.com. If you just search the word winter, the first two results will take you to our winter weather planning and recovery page or the winter weather action plan page. There, between these two pages, you'll find the recap of what I just reviewed, as well as that link to our printer-friendly checklist that Emily mentioned earlier, to help you be prepared for anything that Mother Nature throws our way. Those pages also have a link to our case management customer portal, and this is where you can create a case to report if your facility has any issues that are impacting your ability to receive service. You can also reach out to our customer care and support team by calling the 800 number for any routine questions or issues. And of course, if your facility has any critical incidents that need to be reported, calling our Response Management Communication Center is the best way to report that. That's all I've got. So now I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, where she's going to talk about how we work with communities. Lisa?
Awesome. Thank you, Tony. I appreciate it. So as Tony mentioned, my team works with communities on a variety of issues, including rail safety initiatives and winter weather planning. And today I'm just going to talk a little bit about those efforts. And I do want to really thank everybody for participating today, because as critical stakeholders, our customers and our communities are an absolute integral part of rail safety and winter preparedness. So with our first slide here, we have over 30,000 active rail crossings on our rail network. And so I want to share just a little bit of information with you that I hope will be useful within each of your organizations. And the first thing I want to point out is that Union Pacific does have a public projects team that really serves as the first primary point of contact for communities, public agencies, customers, and others who may be developing or working on projects that would involve railroad property. And those projects may include grade separations, changes to existing crossings, new crossings requests, road construction, or recreational trails. And of note, any roadway improvement or construction proposal that could impact Union Pacific right-of-way or be near Union Pacific track must be evaluated by the railroad to ensure the safety of the public, our employees, as well as our customers. And so one thing that we've developed to really streamline the UP review process for the thousands of projects that we get submitted to us on an annual basis is we have a team that developed what we call our Public Projects Manual. And that manual provides guidance on project requirements that may involve railroad property. And one thing that we really ask is if you do have a project that may intersect with Union Pacific right-of-way, that you review that manual prior to contacting Union Pacific, because that's really going to help expedite the review process and give you a really good understanding of some of the requirements that the railroad has from a safety perspective. And then just with regard to railroad crossings, we field a lot of questions about who's actually responsible for maintaining them. So just to clarify that point, the roadway authorities are the entities that are responsible for the signage leading up to the crossings, the pavement markings, intersection traffic control, the roadway approaches, and the surfaces and the sidewalks. And then the railroad is responsible for maintaining the actual crossing surface, as well as the lights and gates. So we've included a link to the public project manual on this slide, which contains all of the information I've discussed, as well as contacts if in fact you are looking to get a new project started for review with the railroad. So moving on to our next slide. Because we do have so many railroad crossings and lines that run through our nearly 7,300 communities, I did want to just briefly talk about Union Pacific's, what we call our community event notification process. And while, first of all, we strongly encourage event organizers to plan activities that do not cross railroad tracks or are not in close proximity to railroad property. However, if that is going to be the case, we do ask that you contact Union Pacific in the event that you do have an activity or event that may be in close proximity. And there are a couple options on this slide that provide direction on how to do that. One is just by submitting that online to the up.com/notify-UP. That's an automated email that goes into our train management, it's system information so that our train crews are aware when they're coming through an area that there could be gatherings or people in proximity to our right of way. And then there's also a phone number there that you can utilize for that as well. So the other thing just to keep in mind is, we always do want to remind people that when you plan or conduct events on or near railroad property without notifying us of that, you do really have the potential of putting your participants at risk. So just moving on to talking more specifically about winter weather planning. I know my colleagues have covered a lot focusing on, our customer facilities. I wanted to talk about a little bit again, our winter weather notification. So each year, my team shares winter related snow information related to clearing and safe driving reminders with communities as well as roadway authorities. And specifically, we want to remind communities to familiarize themselves with preferred plow methods at railroad crossings. And for some of you who may have been in the road authority or public agency road business for a long time, that wasn't always the case. We did not always give guidance to communities to plow the crossings, but we have now are at a point where we absolutely encourage you to do so. And then if you are going to plow over or near the railroad crossings, we really ask that you don't pile any snow or ice up under the gate arms or near any of our electrical mechanisms. Obviously, that's a concern because it could result in equipment malfunction or decreased visibility for roadway motorists or our train crews as well. And then when you're thinking about applying, as you do, a variety of different applications to your own roadways, we just ask that when you go over the railroad crossings that you minimize those treatments, particularly on the track itself. And obviously, that's related to sand, salt, brine, magnesium chloride, and other treatment options that you may utilize. And then the other thing I wanted to just touch on is just, when we communicate with the public about winter weather driving tips, we would love to partner with our communities to consider sharing messaging specific to railroad crossings. And on this slide, we developed the infographic that's on the right-hand side, which you can utilize. It's copy ready to go for online sharing via social media channels, or if you have community newsletters that are going to go out as well. And then if you're interested, Union Pacific is able to coordinate winter weather planning with you in advance, which can be done by contacting our public affairs team. And the next slide actually includes a map of that team who you can contact. There's a QR code there that will take you directly to that as well. So in closing, I also just wanted to point out, for our customers as well, another thing that my team does on an annual basis is we catalog and look into all the state DOT winter weather planning processes just to make sure that, hey, do they have enough capacity and resources if they need to surge somewhere because of a winter weather event in a certain part of the state? And are they going to have the staffing capabilities to be able to manage the winter weather that comes their way? And the reason that that's really important for us is because if we find out that there are states that think that they're going to be short on resources, that means that they're going to probably struggle a little bit with clearing during significant events. And that in turn impacts our ability to get access to our trains, to get our crews on and off trains, and to keep those trains moving. So we are looking at other resources and able to ensure that we have a safe and efficient system throughout the winter. So with that, I'll turn it back to Clarissa.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and all of our panelists. And we're getting ready to do the best part, which is answer your question. But before we jump into that, would love just a little bit of feedback and ask you to complete a poll. Did you find the information we shared to be useful? Thank you. Now we're going to get ready to jump into our Q&A. And just a general reminder to keep your questions focused on winter weather planning. For any other topics or specific issues related to your company, please reach out to the sales team or to public affairs, depending on what the issue is and what your need is. And thank you for those who submitted questions ahead of time. I'm going to start to jump into some of those that were submitted ahead of time, in addition to ones that have been coming in the chat, as well as through those of you using the QR code. So the first question we have is from Matt. Matt, for those of us who've been around for a while, have any of these steps or protocols changed over the last few years?
Thanks, Clarissa. That's a great question. The protocols have absolutely changed over the years. So after each major event that we have a meeting to capture what went well and then figure out what didn't go well during that previous storm event. So not every weather event is the same, and they certainly don't happen always in the same places. So that's why capturing our best practices and learning from our mistakes is important to document and document for our future weather plans for future use.
Yep, and you're hearing the latest protocol. So yes, they do change. We learn, and what you are hearing us talk about today are the latest ones and the current one. So Lisa, this question's for you to confirm: if we, Union Pacific, plow over the crossing, where should we put? Oh, not we. If we, someone else, like a customer, someone in the community, is plowing over the crossing, where should they put the removed snow?
Yep, I would recommend you push it up and over the crossing and then diagonally to either side, and just making sure that you're giving enough clearance so that you don't have any snow that is going to be built up back against the track. Keeping in mind too, we've got a lot of places on the railroad where wind events will sometimes accompany winter weather events, so you might have that snow piling back up. So to the extent that you can keep it as far away from the equipment on the crossing, that's the most helpful.
Thank you, Lisa. This one's for Tiffany. Tiffany, should we expect any changes because you're predicting more snow this year?
I think Matt talked about it a little bit on how we kind of review plans each year after each event. And what we will do at the HDC in coordination with the field is we'll take this information that we get from AccuWeather, who is our weather client, and they provide this in advance. So that way we have an idea of what the season is going to predict. And that way we can make those necessary changes that we have to. From my standpoint at the HDC and the dispatching centers, myself and my team, we have to monitor the weather closely leading up to any major storm, because we have critical roles here at the dispatching center, the train dispatcher, corridor managers that have to be here. So we'll monitor the storms. We coordinate hotel rooms that are a location less than a block away from the dispatching center. And then we'll also rent four-wheel drive vehicles, so that way we have a team of drivers who can physically go out and pick up employees should they have any issues getting out of their neighborhood or across the roads. But we will be looking at these storms well in advance and then adjusting as we need to as we go, and be ready to respond promptly.
Awesome. Thank you. This one was answered in the webinar, but I think it's good to answer it as much as we can. Who should we contact at Union Pacific to coordinate winter weather planning? Emily or Tony?
Yeah, I can take that one. So as I mentioned, if a lot of our customers, they have a relationship with the crews, they talk to them when they come out, and a lot of them also know the local operating manager. So I would say if you have those contacts, then obviously work directly with them to share the plans. Informing the manager is really important, because even though you may have a crew that normally serves your facility, there could be times where an extra crew is going to be coming out and doing that work. So that manager in the job briefing can pass along any items that they need to be aware of. If you don't have those contacts, you can always submit a case that would outline, and if we have any questions, if my team has any questions, we will probe for an understanding, maybe call you directly, and we can help get you connected directly to the local manager and the train crew. We can even add comments to the train crew's work order, so that way we know that any requirements or any important details are shared with the local team.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Clarissa, the customer sales manager too can also help if they have questions on who to contact.
Great. Thank you so much. Lisa, can you tackle this one? Can we salt the crossing? Is it salt on the crossing?
Yep, the salt can be applied to the crossing as well as other treatments depending on what your roadway authority utilizes. We just ask that you limit the application of that on the crossing itself and specifically on the track.
Okay, thank you. And then Emily, where can I find the winter weather checklist that was mentioned?
So the QR code that was on this presentation will take you right there. Also, if you go onto our website, and as Tony had mentioned earlier, if you just type in the word winter, our winter weather page will come up, and it does have a link to that checklist as well.
Thank you. And Tony, how do we report a winter weather related event at our facility?
Yeah, great question. If you have anything that you need to share with us, you can always create the case, and there's an option when you're creating cases for facility. And so you can put in the case, outline any concerns. If your facility is out of service, you can notify us that. We'll take your tracks out of service. That way, nothing will schedule in to be delivered until you say that you're back in service. And if you don't have access to the case system, you can also just call the 800 number and talk to the call center, which is staffed 24/7. And again, to recap, if it's something critical, something that needs to be reported right away, then contacting our RMCC would be the best option. And that number is located on the website. I believe it's 800 UP COPS, and that will get you to our risk management call center, and then they can disseminate the information to the appropriate field manager.
And thank you. This one's for Matt. What plans are at a local yard level for combating the weather?
Yeah, thanks, Clarissa. That's a great question. So I'm going to answer that by educating you on the process that all service units do. So the process at each service unit that has some sort of an impact by winter weather has a formal winter weather plan associated. Each team then meets around, let's say, August to review the winter plan, and we go through those page by page. And we do that because people move around jobs, you end up with new contractors, something inevitably changes, and you have to go through and make sure that each one of the new contacts is updated and that everything is still relevant and correct. And then you're ensuring that what was learned from the prior year's storms is showing up in that next level. Once we've had an updated plan, we meet with our in-house and contracted snow removal companies, and then we have an on-site meeting prior to the first snowfall. And lastly, if it's a major major winter weather event, we split up our leadership teams on the service units, and we go to a 24-hour coverage, and we do that so key decisions are made quickly.
Excellent. Thank you. Emily, what actions are being taken to protect UP's reefer fleet from cold weather challenges such as high incidence of mechanical failure and fuel gelling?
Yeah, great question. There's a couple of new initiatives that we have going on. The first one in 2023, our mechanical team spent a lot of time testing different fuel additives. So this year, as we're heading into the winter season, the optimal choice is going to be used for our fuel additives to the reefers. Also, all cars that are going through pre-trip facilities are going to be 100% purged. So purging will get rid of any water that's at the bottom of the tank that could freeze during the colder months and prevent the reefer from getting fuel itself. And then the third thing is that all empty reefers that are heading to a customer's facility will be in sleep mode. So this mode will start up and run the reefer unit for a time needed when the battery voltage drops below a certain voltage reading or the engine block temperature gets below a certain temperature. So these are 3 initiatives that are being implemented this year that should definitely help with the past gel fueling cold weather issues. Of course, it's important to remember that in sub-zero temperatures for extended periods of time can still create issues with the reefers.
Thank you, Emily. This next one's for Matt. Matt, do we need to clean snow or ice off the UP switches, the ones with UP locks on them? It's been controversial with some of the crew members.
Oh boy. Need to, I would tell you no. Now, in normal operation through the winter and through storm events, the best thing is it can take everybody working together to get through some of the major ones. But for normal operation, I would expect that the conversation would be open with the local folks, your crew, the local management, or any of the processes that were brought up here on this call, and help the team know where the need of the cleaning of switches is, and that's because the ones that are locked out, it's locked out for a reason, and to properly clean a switch, you need to clean it when it's both open and closed.
Thank you, Matt. Lisa, this next one's for you. We all know how messy what the salt can be when it's like all over, and we all kind of experience it, even when we saw our own garages or steps. So this question's around like if UP staff is a bit messy or wasteful when they're salting stations, can they be more judicious in the application of salt with stations? What do you think can be maybe done about that?
Yeah, so having spent 7 years in Chicagoland, I'm assuming that this is where the question is targeted with the Metro service that UP has operated for quite some time. So I will take that back to the team that does it. Sometimes when they go out and they're salting the stations or the walkways and everything, it's because of an unexpected event that they didn't anticipate. And so we may be trying to hurry and make sure we get everything covered, because I'll tell you, we do field calls sometimes that tell us, hey, you didn't salt enough and I want to see more salt on there. But I will certainly carry that back to the team and their management. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you. Tiffany, are there any specific areas in the U.S. we might expect to see the most significant delays in recovery this winter season? Should we be more concerned with areas from the north, or are there any areas that might be more difficult to resolve due to remote or rural terrain? What areas are you looking at?
I think the areas that we're going to see the most amount of snowfall is going to be that northwestern portion of the United States. We do have different measures that we take to be able to access crews and to get across the rail. The most important thing is to keep the movement across the rail, to keep the snow clear off of the rails. But we do utilize what we would consider a snow bus, or we would take locomotives that we've got back-to-back locomotives that we utilize, run back and forth to keep the rail clear. You think of areas in Wyoming where the snow blows and there's no protection, that continues to create those mounds of snow that are difficult to get through. So we, again, from learning from the past, we have several measures in place that we do put into place to kind of counteract those situations. There's always going to be something that comes up that's surprising that we weren't expecting, but we do have things in place that we can get to some of those more rural areas when we understand that the roads may be closed or we may not have access that way. Not only to keep the business moving, but also for the safety of our crews and not leaving them on the trains.
Awesome. Thank you. So that was our last question. So before we wrap things up, though, we'd love to know, just as I mentioned before, this webinar came because you asked for it. So we'd love to know in this poll, what are the other interests do you have in future webinars? And some options: shipping carbon by rail, rail safety in your community, best practices for applying the Community Ties Giving Program, which is our charitable giving program, what you need to know about the ports and rail, adding rail to your supply chain, customer-focused tech enhancements. And let us know what you think would be a great future topic. And also, you can also, as if you were sitting in a question, you scan the QR code and send in a topic. If you're passionate about something, you don't see it on the list. We'd love to see you respond there. It looks like what's winning right now are customer-focused technology enhancements. And now it's tied with what do you need to know about ports and rail. And rail safety is coming in as a close second or third there too. So this is super helpful. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for responding to those. Also know we're going to send the recording and these slides out to you. And so I just want to thank you again for taking the time to join us. We had over 130 folks join, and we know more who registered will watch the webinar. So thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists. Please be safe, be careful, and please have a good holiday season. Thank you all for joining.